The 2018 Boston Red Sox are certainly a fun one to look back on. How can the 2025 rendition of the team get back to that level?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it is all completely free. So you might as well tune in because Locked On is your team every single day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We'll tell you a little bit more about FanDuel a little bit later on today's show. But welcome. Happy Thursday. And you might be wondering why I'm in such a good mood today, because it's not like the Red Sox are playing postseason baseball, so it's not like we have something to look forward to there. But I was doing some reminiscing on the 2018 Red Sox team. Reason being because yesterday actually marked the date, October 9th, in 2018, that the Red Sox defeated the Yankees in the division series and moved on to the ALCS. And what a time that was. And sometimes you have to look back on those types of memories to just realize how lucky we have been as Red Sox fans in really a long time, since 2000, to have been able to see this team win 4 championships in that time span. I mean, I definitely would not change that for the world. So I was just thinking about the 2018 team. And on today's show, I'm going to be doing some reminiscing on that year, as well as comparing the 2018 team to the 2024 team and figuring out how the 2025 rendition of the Red Sox can get back to being a team that is a definitive World Series favorite. Because that was the biggest thing in 2018, was that Red Sox team was a no doubt World Series favorite from the get-go. They had the talent on paper, and yes, the best team on paper doesn't always win, but that team did, and they coasted through and defeated everybody else pretty handily. And by the time they got to the World Series against the Dodgers, everybody knew that it wasn't really going to be a series, and sure enough, the Red Sox won it in 5 games. It was a super fun team to watch. The Red Sox spent tons of money on high caliber players, and that team figured it out, won 108 games and won the division. I mean, they only lost 54 games that year. It was pretty incredible. And if you think about how much things have changed from then to now, the Orioles were 47 and 115 that year, 61 games behind the Red Sox in the division. And it's crazy how much the tables have turned there, because the Orioles now are very competitive, won almost 100 games in 2024, and are a team to beat in the American League. So it's just crazy how quickly things turn around. And for the Red Sox finishing right at 500 in 2024 and being towards the bottom of the division and not being a real threat in the postseason, it was kind of sad how badly things have fallen for them. But the 2018 team was special. They were hungry and they wanted to go out there and take care of business, and they wanted to win. And when looking back at the 2018 team, some of the biggest moments that I enjoyed from that season were very fun moments that made me feel like that team was really special. April 8th of 2018, the Red Sox gave an early indication of the type of thrilling rallies that they would go on to win throughout the season, exploding for 6 straight 2-out hits to come back from a 5-run deficit in the bottom of the 8th inning to beat the Rays 8-7. Mookie Betts tied the game with an RBI single, and then Andrew Benintendi completed the comeback by lofting an RBI double off the monster. And this wasn't the only time they would facilitate that type of win. They had many comeback wins in that season, and that was one of the biggest defining moments for me, because whenever you felt like they were out of a game, they weren't. Like, you could not rule that 2018 Red Sox team out of any game. They were always in it, and they found ways to win so often that even if they were down 5 runs, like in that scenario, I wasn't waving the white flag on that game. Whereas this past season, I always would wave the white flag in those situations. On May 2nd, Mookie hit his second 3-homer game of the season, and the Red Sox needed all of those in a close, tight 5-4 win over the Royals. That was when Mookie passed Ted Williams to become the all-time leader for the Red Sox with 4 3-homer games. He was so much fun to watch. Mookie was a great Red Sox. He really was, and it's sad the way that whole situation played out with him, but he was the heart of that team in 2018. And then shortly after that, on May 10th, JD Martinez came up with his first big rivalry moment, which was a solo shot to right field in the 8th that snapped a 4-4 tie against the Yankees. The Red Sox had surrendered a 4-0 lead and were in danger of getting swept in the series. But thanks to JD, who put the team on his back, they were able to salvage the finale against a Yankees team that had won 17 of its last 18 games. So that was when the Yankees were hot at the time, but the Red Sox took care of business and avoided getting swept. And they were dominating their division that year. They won the season series against all of their division opponents, and it was pretty clear that they were the best team in the division. Then on June 30th of that year, Chris Sale produced one of the best performances by a starting pitcher against the Yankees, going 7 innings, giving up just 1 hit, no runs, and striking out 11. This led the Sox to an 11-0 win, and he became the 5th pitcher in the live ball era, which is since 1920, to pitch at least 7 innings while allowing 1 hit or fewer, no runs, and at least 11 strikeouts. Devers also went off, going 5 for 5 in that game with a grand slam. And fun fact, I was at that game. It was such a great time, and I was sitting there, and I was like, this is so much fun, because I had all these Yankees fans around me that were really upset and weren't happy about it. And I was sitting there having an absolute blast at Yankee Stadium watching the Red Sox blow them out, and the Rafael Devers grand slam had me screaming. So that was a fun game, and it was one of the very many moments that made that 2018 team so special. Then on July 2nd, Rick Porcello absolutely electrified the Red Sox dugout when he roped a bases-clearing double against his close friend Max Scherzer to lead the Red Sox to a 4-3 win at Washington. And it was one of those things where just when you felt like the 2018 Red Sox couldn't do any more, a pitcher comes up big with a big hit in a Red Sox win against the Nationals. I mean, it was honestly really funny because of all pitchers against Max Scherzer, who at that time was nearly unhittable, for a pitcher to come up in a big spot and get that big hit for the Red Sox to win, it just goes to show that 2018 team was relentless and literally could do anything and throw anybody into that spot and come up big. Just further solidifying how much depth that team had. Then on July 12th, this is the famous Mookie at-bat that they still show now sometimes in the NESN highlights before and after games, when Mookie produced one of the most thrilling at-bats of the season, working Blue Jays pitcher J.A. Happ for 13 pitches and ripping a grand slam over the monster to lead the Red Sox to a 6-4 win over the Blue Jays to extend the team's winning streak to 10 games. That was actually the first time a player hit a grand slam in an at-bat of 13 pitches or more since Gary Scott did so for the Cubs on the 13th pitch against Philadelphia's Kyle Abbott on April 20th, 1992. It was so fun because there was so much suspense built up in that at-bat. I was sitting there on the edge of my seat waiting to see how that at-bat would pan out. And when he crushed that baseball, I knew it was gone, and I started freaking out in my parents' basement. This was when I was still living at home and I was commuting to ESPN for my first job out of college, and I was trying to save some money. And I got so much use out of my parents' basement that year watching all of these games. And that was electrifying and just a fantastic moment in Mookie's Red Sox career. Then on July 27th, Mookie again, after Craig Kimbrell blew a save in the top of the ninth inning, Devers tied it with a solo shot in the bottom of the ninth, and then Mookie sent everyone home happy with the first walk-off homer of his career in the bottom of the 10th. The Red Sox ended up beating the Twins 4-3. That was another big moment because it was career-defying for him because he went on to just have such a successful career, which now is still going on, but unfortunately in LA and not in Boston. But that was another big Mookie moment that happened that year. There are lots of Mookie moments from 2018. August 2nd, Steve Pearce opened a 4-game showdown against the Yankees in style by smashing 3 homers to pace the Red Sox in a 15-7 win. He became just the third Red Sox player to hit 3 homers in a game against the Yankees and the first since Kevin Millar in 2004. We all love Steve Pearce, World Series MVP in 2018, the guy who came out of nowhere and just absolutely crushed baseballs for the Red Sox. I mean, that was such a fun time. And him having that big game against New York was obviously just foreshadowing the type of postseason he was going to have. Then the next day, down 4-1 in the bottom of the ninth, the Red Sox roared back for 3 runs to tie it against Yankees closer Aroldis Chapman. JD Martinez's 2-run single made it a 1-run game, and then the Red Sox tied it on a 2-out error by Miguel Andujar. And then Andrew Benintendi won it for the Red Sox with a seeing eye single in the bottom of the 10th. The final ended up being 5-4 Red Sox, which was the capper of a 4-game sweep. So the Yankees were down bad in that series already, but the Red Sox rallied back again when they were losing in the bottom of the ninth. And that's just a pivotal point that this Red Sox team was never out of it. Then on September 5th, of all the crazy comeback wins by the Red Sox that year, this one certainly was my favorite and topped the list. They were down 7-1 entering the 8th inning against the Braves and came roaring back with a 6-run rally in that game. Pinch hitter Ian Kinsler, I bet you forgot about him being on the team, tied it with a 2-run single. And then even after the Braves retook the lead in the bottom of the 8th on a homer by Freddie Freeman, the Red Sox surged back with 2 outs in the 9th. The hero in that one was Brandon Phillips, who punctuated his first major league game of the season with a go-ahead 2-run homer that paved the way for a 9-8 win. Brandon Phillips randomly had little moments throughout the course of that season where he was huge for this Red Sox team, and it was so fun to watch. I mean, talk about big moments during the regular season for the Red Sox in 2018. Such a fun team to watch. And obviously the postseason goes without saying, just an easy run through the Yankees, Astros, and Dodgers to win it all and cap off what was an incredible season. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about the roster makeup of that 2018 team, what made them as successful as they were, and how does that roster compare to the underwhelming roster they had in 2024. If you're looking for a fun place to play daily fantasy sports, PrizePicks has you covered. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. It's pretty incredible. You don't have to be perfect in order to win all the money, and that's what we love. Just sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Just download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. You can win so much money on PrizePicks. I promise you will not be disappointed. It truly can change your life. The other thing that can change your life is Booking.com. This episode of Locked On Red Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city. even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. I'm sure you've heard a lot about Booking.com because of the fact that they are sponsoring some of the MLB playoffs. So you've heard commercials about them, but I've used it a lot of times to book stays in different cities. And this is a great opportunity for you to utilize it if you're looking to maybe travel to one of these ballparks for the playoffs to see your favorite team play, or even if your favorite team isn't in it, like me, and you want to go and watch another playoff game. Booking.com has great deals on places to stay, so I highly recommend you utilizing it for your next visit, no matter where it is. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, booking.yeah. On today's show, we've been looking back at the 2018 Boston Red Sox team, a legendary team that just knew how to get things done. They took care of business and they won games, even ones that you didn't think they were going to win. Whenever you thought they were out of a game and the game was over, they would prove us wrong and say, nope, we're still here. And that was what was amazing about them. And looking back at that roster compared to the 2024 roster, I mean, first of all, the catching situation. The Red Sox catchers in 2018 were Dan Butler, Sandy Leon, Blake Swihart, and Christian Vasquez. Primarily Vasquez and Leon as the catchers. Chris Sale liked Sandy Leon catching for him, and Christian Vasquez was a great defensive catcher. Offensively, they both didn't necessarily produce at a super high level, but they were very reliable behind the dish. And now in 2024, from a catching standpoint, the Red Sox had Mickey Gasper, Tyler Heineman, Danny Jansen, Reese McGuire, and Connor Wong, with Connor Wong being the main guy. But even look at him. His defense is very bad. He does not know how to make good stops behind the plate, and that was something the Red Sox didn't have an issue with when it came to Christian Vasquez and Sandy Leon. So that alone is a huge difference. They don't have a reliable catching tandem like they had back then, and that was something that the 2024 team really was restricted by, was that lack of defense by Connor Wong, and also just the lack of productivity overall from guys like Reese McGuire and Danny Jansen, especially at the plate. So the Red Sox seriously struggled to find reliable catching all season long. Then you look at the outfielders and Andrew Benintendi, Mookie Betts, JBJ, JD Martinez, Steve Pearce, with that trio of Benintendi, Mookie, and JBJ being the primary outfielders. I mean, obviously JBJ couldn't hit, but he had the best defense in center field in the league at the time, had an absolute cannon of an arm. Players were not running on him, knew that he could throw guys out at home plate, and he did it many times that year. He would climb over the wall to make crazy plays. So his defense was why he was here, and his defense was key to this Red Sox team. Andrew Benintendi would produce offensively that year, and he had that amazing catch against the Astros to save the Red Sox in the ALCS when Craig Kimbrell was pitching and the bases were loaded, and Andrew Benintendi made this big diving catch. It's a really famous play in Red Sox history. So he had his big moments too, and obviously Mookie goes without saying. Team MVP, American League MVP. It just was an all-around great player for Boston to have. JD Martinez and Steve Pearce didn't really play in the outfield as much, but JD was great as a DH. So you had this great combination of guys that were all producing at a high level for the Boston Red Sox. Then you look at the outfielders in 2024, and they definitely have their fair share of good moments. I mean, Jarren Duran, team MVP in 2024, All-Star Game MVP, did a lot of things the right way with his speed, with his outfield skills, with his bat. So he's very talented. Is he at Mookie's level? No, but maybe he can be one day if he stays healthy and he continues to evolve as a player in the way that he has been evolving. He definitely has the potential to be that type of player down the road. Then you have Wilyer Abreu, who also was a great outfielder this year, had phenomenal defense out there, and also was able to produce at a really high level offensively. So those two for sure, you can sit there and say from an outfield standpoint, matched up a little bit to what the Red Sox had in 2018. They're younger, so obviously their career numbers right now aren't going to be at that same level as those guys were, but from a raw talent standpoint, they absolutely can be there. Then you had Cedar Rafaela, who was a fantastic defender, but couldn't really produce as much at the plate. He's kind of like the JBJ of that outfield, the guy who made all of the right plays defensively, but then he gets to the plate and can't figure out how to produce. I'm still hoping, since he's young, he can get his offensive numbers and productivity up a little bit. But as of right now, he would be the JBJ in that outfield who just has phenomenal defense but can't really hit. And then Wilyer Abreu is kind of like the Ender Benintendi, and Jarren Duran's kind of like the Mookie Betts who could do everything. Then you had Tyler O'Neill, Rob Refsnyder, and Masataka Yoshida. Yoshida didn't really play in the outfield in 2024, so he doesn't really count. But Tyler O'Neill and Rob Refsnyder did both struggle defensively. In fairness, Tyler O'Neill was kind of playing in a different position from what he had been used to playing before. Rob Refsnyder was kind of a swing guy who would be used where needed in the outfield and ended up being a bit of a defensive liability. So those two weren't as good defensively. So if you take those two and compare them to JD and Steve Pearce, JD and Steve Pearce obviously were more reliable. So from an outfield depth standpoint, the 2018 team had the edge. But from an outfield skill standpoint, I can't really put them that much above where the 2024 outfielders were at. But then you look at the rest of the roster, the infielders in 2018, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Brock Holt, who hit for the cycle in the playoffs, Ian Kinsler, who came in and just absolutely went off when the Red Sox acquired him, Zue Lin, who played most of the time in AAA, but would get called up sometimes to the majors, Mitch Moreland, who had some huge moments for this Red Sox team, big home runs in clutch spots, Eduardo Nunez, who was a weaker part of that team, but still had some bright spots, Dustin Pedroia, who didn't play but was technically still part of the roster that year and was a great leader to have in the clubhouse. Brandon Phillips, I already talked about him. He had some big Red Sox moments. Tony Renda and Sam Travis. Sam Travis was also somebody who didn't see a lot of consistent playing time, but still contributed when he needed. But I mean, we're talking about guys like Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Mitch Moreland, guys who were super reliable on a day-to-day basis, and Brock Holt as the utility guy. Those guys were all playing at a very high level on a daily basis. Then you look at the infielders the Red Sox have in 2024. Tristan Casas, who was injured for the majority of the season, so we can't really compare him to anybody because it's not fair because we haven't seen his full potential yet. Then Garrett Cooper, who was absolutely abysmal at first base when he took Casas' spot when he got injured. Dom Smith, who I really liked, who contributed a lot when he was here. Great leader, veteran who had a lot of experience and brought that to this Red Sox team, and a guy who genuinely enjoyed playing the game. And even though he knew his time was going to be cut short when Casas came back, he still accepted that, and he still went out there and gave 100% effort every game. Bobby Dahlbeck, who is a good first baseman defensively, but can't hit for the life of him, and is a career minor league player. Then obviously Devers, the only member of the 2018 team that still remains. Then you have Romy Gonzalez, Vaughn Grissom, David Hamilton, Pablo Reyes, who ended up getting the boot, was there briefly. Zach Short also was there for a short period of time. Nick Sogard, Trevor Story, and Manuel Valdez. The biggest difference between these infielders and the 2018 infielders is lack of consistency. In 2018, they had guys who played defined positions and they excelled in those positions. This 2024 rendition of the team shuffled a lot of guys around in the middle infield in particular. Not that that's fully their fault because of Trevor Story getting injured, but you take guys like Valdez, Hamilton, Romy, Grissom, who also was hurt for a lot of the year, Nick Sogard. These guys didn't get a lot of playing time in general. I mean, Romy started to get a lot more towards the end because he was really good when he was pinch hitting and he was good defensively. But there were inconsistencies, especially at second base with Vaughn Grissom being injured. So from a skill standpoint, some of them definitely have the potential, like Romy Gonzalez, but they really need more playing time in order for us to really evaluate it. But it's hard to argue that, Xander Bogaerts is less reliable than some of these other players that the Red Sox threw in there in 2024. That's just not the case. So the 2018 team was a lot more complete in that regard. And not even to get into pitching. I mean, the 2018 pitching staff for the Red Sox was unbelievable. Matt Barnes, Jalen Beeks, Ryan Brazier obviously was a weak part of that roster, but it's fine because they had the depth. William Cuevas, Nathan Eovaldi, Justin Haley, Heath Hembry, which, by the way, Nathan Eovaldi, I mean, he was a machine in that World Series game against the Dodgers when it went 18 innings, and he pitched 9 of those innings, and he was a hot commodity after that season, and the Red Sox ended up bringing him back. But Brian Johnson, Joe Kelly, Craig Kimbrell, Drew Pomeranz, Rick Porcello, Bobby Pointer, David Price, Eduardo Rodriguez, Chris Sale, the ace of the staff, Robbie Scott, Carson Smith, Tyler Thornburg, Hector Velasquez, Marcus Walden, Brandon Workman, and Stephen Wright. I mean, they had the pitching depth. Brandon Workman was phenomenal on that pitching staff and was super reliable in the playoffs. Although Craig Kimbrell wasn't reliable in the playoffs, he was at least a real closer that the Red Sox had, and they did have a real closer in 2024 in Ken Lee, but a lot different depth, because if you look at the 2024 depth chart for the Red Sox pitchers, Chase Anderson, we all know how bad he was. Red Sox ended up letting him go. Brian Bayo, Brennan Bernardino, Cam Boozer, Isaiah Campbell, Cutter Crawford, Cooper Criswell, Richard Fitz, Louis Garcia, Louis Guerrero, Rich Hill, Bailey Horn, Tanner Houck, Joe Jakes, Kenley Jansen, Brad Keller, Zach Kelly, Chris Martin, James Paxton, Zach Penrod, Nick Pavetta, Quinn Preister, Johan Ramirez, Joely Rodriguez, Chase Shugart, Lucas Sims, Justin Slayton, Naoki Uesawa, Greg Weiser, Garrett Whitlock, Josh Winkowski, Trey Wingenter. I'm sure you forgot about some of those guys, but the key was these were all the players who made an appearance on the mound for the Red Sox in 2024. Look at the lack of reliable pitchers in 2024 for the Red Sox compared to 2018. It's a huge difference, and the pitching ended up being the downfall for the Red Sox in 2024, and the 2018 team just had guys they could go to. When 2024 guys were getting injured, the Red Sox didn't have nearly as many weapons or guys they could go to. So definitely tough, and the comparison is vastly different between the two. But coming up, how exactly can the Red Sox get back to the level that the 2018 team was? That's next. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel wins you lots of money really fast. I've seen my fiance do it firsthand, so I know that it's possible, and I know that the sky is the limit with FanDuel. So you should definitely download it and start taking advantage of betting on a lot of different sports, especially this time of year with so many sports going on. NHL just kicked off. MLB playoffs still going, WNBA playoffs still going, football is obviously in season, and the NBA is right around the corner. So lots to be able to bet on college football. So make sure you take advantage of that today. In talking about the 2018 Red Sox team versus the 2024 team, we ask ourselves, how can the 2025 Boston Red Sox get back to the level of competitiveness that the 2018 team was at? And I'm not even asking for 108 wins, but I'm asking for a team that has a really solid chance to win its division and a team that could be a World Series contender, no doubt about it. That is the type of team that I want the Red Sox to build for 2025. For example, the 2018 team had an ace in Chris Sale. That was prime Chris Sale that we knew we could rely on a day-to-day basis, somebody who would go out there and absolutely shove in his starts. We always got excited for Sale Day in 2018. He was the guy that led that pitching staff. The Red Sox don't have an ace in that pitching staff right now, and they can have one if they go out and sign somebody like Corbin Burns or Max Fried or somebody who's a free agent, or trade for an ace caliber starter from a team willing to give up their ace, a team that maybe is rebuilding and is just looking for some prospects in return. The Red Sox have one of the best farm systems in baseball right now, so they can afford to trade for an ace caliber starter. But that was one of the biggest difference. The Red Sox had that #1 at the top of the rotation in Chris Sale. They need that for 2025. So go and sign somebody or trade for somebody. Preferably sign somebody and whip out the wallet, but we don't trust that John Henry will actually do that. So that's step one. Step two, the Red Sox need to have a balanced lineup. The 2018 team had lots of guys in there who could produce power, but could also play small ball and record base hits. Like, you had guys like Devers in there who was hitting lots of home runs, but then you had guys like Mookie who could hit home runs, but he could also hit singles and doubles and make his way around the bases. And while the Red Sox had some variation of that, they do need reliable right-handed hitting. guys who can go out there and hit against lefties, because they were absolutely abysmal overall as a lineup against lefties in 2024. And that was the biggest difference between them and 2018, was the 2018 team had a good mix of guys who could hit right-handed, who could hit left-handed, and could produce more than just power, and could generate some good swings and generate singles and doubles, and not just always be focused on the long ball all the time. So that's another big thing that the 2025 team needs to look to do, is go out and spend money on big time players. I mean, I mentioned Mookie and JD Martinez, guys who were big power bats in the Red Sox lineup. The only big time player that people think of that's associated with the Red Sox right now is Rafael Devers. They need to go out and get another big player. I mean, look at the Yankees went out and got Juan Soto prior to the 2024 season. The Red Sox need to go out and get another player of that caliber in order for fans to feel invested again and feel confident that the Red Sox are building the team that they need to build in order to get back into contention. They need to go get a big name player to add to the lineup. Even like that's Alex Bregman, who I talked about earlier on the show a few days ago, somebody who could provide a good, strong right-handed bat for the Red Sox lineup, somebody who is reliable and has playoff success and has a track record. You need to bring somebody else in who's a high marquee name to pair with Rafael Devers. The Red Sox just don't have guys like that in their lineup right now. When you think about the 2018 lineup with Mookie, JD, Xander, Bogaerts, it's hard to compare and say, wow, the Red Sox have cool players right now, because they just really don't. So they need to invest and go out and get players like that. And the bullpen had a lot more depth in 2018. Reliable guys who could come in and eat innings and be able to not blow these leads all the time. And the Red Sox need to absolutely revamp the bullpen for 2025. I mean, you can't look at the 2018 roster and look at some guys that would come in and pitch out of the bullpen here, like Brandon Workman, like Stephen Wright, like Tyler Thornburg, who started some games too, but primarily played out of the pen. And Matt Barnes, I mean, he had a big season in 2018 also. Those were reliable guys that when you think about them, you know that they were going to go out there and shove. Matt Barnes is a great example of that. Do we have a Matt Barnes equivalent on the team? I think Justin Slayton could be that. He just needs a little bit more experience. But I just listed multiple players on the 2018 team that pitched out of the bullpen that were reliable. I can only list a couple in the Red Sox bullpen that are reliable right now, and Justin Slayton and Luis Guerrero. And Guerrero doesn't even have a lot of experience in the majors. And I do also like generally what I saw from Zach Penrod, but definitely need to see more from him before I declare him super reliable. But at the end of the day, the Red Sox need to make big moves this offseason. I'm not saying just fill holes with players who just fit the mold. I'm talking about being really aggressive and making big moves for big marquee players like the 2018 team had. Do I feel confident that they'll do that? No, but I want to try to give them the benefit of the doubt based on how they've been talking about this offseason. So we will see if they go and do that. It's absolutely a must if they want to be successful in 2025. Thanks for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully, aka Paul Sullivan, a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the playoff picture. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Sully is great and super knowledgeable. I've done shows with him before, so make sure you check out his show right after this. As always, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.